If you're over 60 and you keep waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning for no obvious reason, no full bladder, no noise, just lying there wide awake with a restless, achy feeling in your hips or lower back, there's a very good chance one specific muscle in your body is the reason, and almost nobody talks about it. That muscle is called the psoas. Most people have never heard of it. But sports medicine doctors, physical therapists, and sleep researchers are increasingly connecting a chronically tight psoas muscle to disrupted sleep, nighttime restlessness, and that low, nagging ache that seems to have no clear source. And here's the thing. After 60, this muscle gets tighter faster than almost any other muscle in your body, partly because of how we age, partly because of how much time most of us spend sitting, and partly because of how the nervous system changes as we get older. But the good news? There's a simple, gentle release exercise that specifically targets this muscle. You can do it on your bed or on the floor. It takes about 5 to 8 minutes. And people who do it consistently report falling back to sleep faster, waking up less during the night, and having noticeably less hip and lower back stiffness when they get up in the morning. So let's get into all of it. What this muscle actually is, why it gets so tight, what that does to your sleep, and exactly how to release it. Your psoas, and most people pronounce it psoas, is a long, deep muscle that runs from your lower spine through your pelvis and attaches to the top of your thigh bone. It's the only muscle in your body that directly connects your spine to your legs, which means it plays a role in almost everything. Standing, walking, climbing stairs, sitting down, getting up. It's constantly working. And because it's so deep, tucked behind your abdominal organs, you can't see it. You can't easily feel it from the outside. And most people have no idea when it's tight until something else starts hurting. Here's what happens as we age. The psoas is largely made of what's called slow twitch muscle fibers. These fibers are designed for endurance. They don't fatigue quickly, but they do shorten and stiffen over time if they're not regularly stretched and move through their full range of motion. After 60, the connective tissue around muscles becomes less elastic, the natural lubrication around joints decreases, and the body starts to adopt what's sometimes called a protective posture. Hips slightly flexed, lower back pulled forward. This is largely the psoas pulling tight, and once it's chronically shortened, it stays that way unless you deliberately release it. Now here's where sleep comes in. The psoas is intimately connected to the body's stress response. It's one of the primary muscles involved in the fight or flight reflex, that ancient survival mechanism where the body curls forward and prepares to run or defend itself. When you're stressed, the psoas contracts. When you're anxious, it contracts. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. It also contracts in response to emotional stress that you've been carrying for years. Trauma researchers like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk have written extensively about how the body holds chronic tension in the hip flexors and psoas long after the stressful event has passed. So if you've lived a full life with its share of stress, and who over 60 hasn't, there's a reasonable chance some of that is literally stored in this muscle. When the psoas is tight, it keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of alert, not a full panic, just a subtle background hum of tension. And that hum is enough to disrupt the deep stages of sleep, the stages where your body does its most important repair work. Stage 3, slow wave sleep, which naturally decreases with age, becomes even harder to maintain when the nervous system is being pulled toward alertness by a chronically tense muscle. This is why so many people over 60 describe their sleep as light, or say they feel like they're half awake even when they're technically asleep. The body never fully drops its guard. There's also a physical reason the psoas disrupts sleep. When it's tight, it creates a constant pull on the lumbar spine, the lower back. This can cause a subtle compression of the discs and nerves in that region. When you lie flat on your back, this tension actually increases slightly because the hip flexors don't have the bent knee position they're used to during sitting. So your body starts to shift, roll, pull the knee up, anything to relieve that tug, and then you wake up. The position change itself brings you back to consciousness, and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're staring at the ceiling wondering why you can't sleep through the night like you used to. Now let's get into what you can actually do about it. The release technique I'm going to walk you through is called a passive psoas release. It's not a stretch in the traditional sense. You're not pulling or pushing anything. Instead, you're using gravity and time to let the muscle slowly unwind on its own. This is actually more effective than aggressive stretching for a chronically tight psoas because forceful stretching can trigger the muscle to contract further as a protective reflex. Slow, passive release bypasses that reflex entirely. Here's how to do the foundational version. You'll need either a yoga block, a firm pillow, or even a stack of folded towels, something that's about 4 to 6 inches high. Lie on your back on a firm surface. Your bed works, but the floor with a yoga mat is slightly better if you're comfortable getting down there. Place your support under your sacrum. That's the flat triangular bone at the base of your spine, just above your tailbone. You want the support under the sacrum itself, not the lower back. Your lower back should have a slight natural arch away from the floor, and your hips should feel gently elevated. Now let your legs extend out, feet relaxed, toes falling naturally to the sides. Let your arms rest open at your sides, palms up, and then you just wait. That's it. The first minute might feel like nothing is happening. By minute 2 or 3, you may start to feel a gentle, deep release in the front of your hips and lower belly. Some people feel warmth, some people feel a slight trembling or fluttering in the hip area. That is completely normal and actually a sign that the muscle is releasing neurological tension. Some people feel emotion come up, a sense of relaxation so deep it's almost surprising. That's the nervous system letting go. Stay in this position for 5 to 8 minutes. If 5 minutes feels like a lot at first, start with 3 and work up. When you're ready to come out, bend your knees first, then gently roll to one side before pushing yourself up. Never come straight up from this position, as it can cause the psoas to contract sharply on the way up. Now, here's a second technique that specifically targets one side at a time, which is important because the psoas is almost always tighter on one side than the other. This one is called the constructive rest position, and it was originally developed by movement educator Lulu Swigard in the 1970s and has since been adapted by physical therapists and somatic movement practitioners worldwide. Lie on your back on a firm surface with your knees bent, feet flat on the floor, about hip width apart. Your feet should be far enough from your body that your lower back can relax flat, not arched, not pushed flat, just naturally settled. Let your hands rest on your lower belly or by your sides. Now just breathe. The key here is to consciously release the lower belly on every exhale. Let it go soft. Let it drop toward the floor. Many of us habitually hold tension in the low belly as a bracing habit, and that tension directly feeds into the psoas. Stay here for 5 to 10 minutes. If you want to deepen the release, you can add a very gentle movement. On an exhale, let one knee slowly drop outward to the side, not forcing it, just letting gravity pull it. Hold it there for 3 to 4 breath cycles, then bring it back up on an inhale. Repeat on the other side. You'll likely notice that one side drops much more easily than the other. That's the tighter side of your psoas. Spending an extra minute on that side can make a real difference. A lot of people ask, when is the best time to do this? And the answer is that there are actually 2 windows that work really well. The first is in the evening, about 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Doing the passive psoas release at this time signals to the nervous system that it's time to shift from active mode into rest mode, because the psoas is so connected to the stress response. Deliberately releasing it in the evening is one of the most effective ways to lower cortisol and prepare the body for deeper sleep. Think of it like a biological off switch. Many people find that after doing this consistently for just a week or 2, they fall asleep faster and wake up less during the night. The second ideal window is first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. When you wake up, the psoas is often in its tightest state. It's been in a relatively fixed position all night, and the body is slow to warm up. Doing even 3 to 5 minutes of constructive rest position before you stand up can dramatically reduce that stiff, creaky feeling in your hips and lower back during the first hour of the day. Now, there are a few things people commonly get wrong when working with the psoas, and they're worth addressing directly. One of the most common mistakes is trying to stretch the psoas aggressively. Lunges, deep hip flexor stretches done with force and urgency. For a younger, flexible person with mild tightness, this can sometimes work fine, but for someone over 60 with a chronically shortened psoas, aggressive stretching often makes things worse. The muscle senses the force and contracts as a protective response. You end up feeling looser for about 20 minutes and then tighter than before. The passive gravity-based release approach is slower, but the results last much longer because you're changing the nervous system's resting tone, not just mechanically pulling on the tissue. Another mistake is thinking that the hip pain or lower back stiffness you feel is entirely a joint problem. A huge number of people over 60 are told their hip pain is arthritis, their back stiffness is disc degeneration, and while those things may be present, they're very often accompanied by and made significantly worse by a tight psoas that's creating extra compression on those exact structures. Releasing the psoas doesn't undo structural changes, but it can dramatically reduce the pain and stiffness that those structural changes cause. And the third mistake, which is a big one, is doing these releases only when things feel bad. The psoas is a postural muscle. It responds to chronic patterns, not acute episodes. Doing the release once when your back flares up and then stopping when it feels better is like watering a plant only when it's wilting. The real benefit comes from making it a daily habit, even on days when you feel fine. That's when you start to see improvements in sleep quality, reduction in nighttime waking, and a noticeable shift in how you feel in the morning. There's also something worth knowing about the relationship between the psoas and your breathing. The psoas and the diaphragm, your main breathing muscle, are connected through layers of deep connective tissue called fascia. When the psoas is chronically tight, it actually restricts the full descent of the diaphragm during inhale. This means your breathing becomes shallower without you realizing it. Shallow breathing keeps the nervous system slightly more activated, which once again feeds back into lighter sleep and more nighttime waking. This is why during the constructive rest position, consciously deepening your breath, especially making the exhale a little longer than the inhale, amplifies the release significantly. A longer exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and digest system, which directly counters the tension pattern in the psoas. Some physical therapists recommend a 4-count inhale and a 6 to 8 count exhale specifically during psoas release work. Try it, and you'll likely feel the difference almost immediately, a warmth and heaviness in the hips that signals genuine muscular letting go. If you want to support the psoas release work with some lifestyle habits, there are a few things that make a real difference. Walking is one of the best. Not power walking, not speed walking, just regular, easy walking where you're taking full strides and letting your hips swing naturally. Each stride requires the psoas to lengthen and contract in sequence, which keeps it from shortening into a fixed position. Even 15 to 20 minutes of easy walking daily does more for psoas health than most structured exercises. Sitting less, or at least changing your sitting position more frequently, also matters a lot. Every hour you spend sitting with your hips bent at 90 degrees, the psoas is being held in a shortened position. It starts to adapt to that length as its new resting state. Like if you can stand up every 30 to 40 minutes, even for just 2 or 3 minutes, it gives the psoas a chance to lengthen and reset. Warmth is your friend. Applying a heating pad to the low back and hip area for 10 to 15 minutes before doing your psoas release can make the tissue more pliable and help the release happen more quickly and deeply. This is especially useful in the morning when the body is stiff and cold. And finally, hydration. The fascial tissue that surrounds and connects the psoas is largely water. Chronically dehydrated fascia becomes stiff and sticky, which means the psoas can't glide smoothly through its range of motion even when you try to release it. Drinking enough water throughout the day, not just in the morning, but consistently, keeps the fascia hydrated and more responsive to release work. One thing people sometimes wonder about is whether they need any equipment or whether these techniques require a professional. The answer is no and no. The release positions described here require nothing more than a firm surface and a folded towel. You don't need a foam roller, a massage gun, or any specialist tools. And while seeing a physical therapist or somatic movement therapist who specializes in the psoas can certainly deepen your practice, these foundational techniques are safe for self-practice by the vast majority of healthy adults. That said, and this is genuinely important, if you're experiencing severe or persistent lower back pain, pain that radiates down your leg, numbness or tingling in your legs or feet, or if you have any known spinal conditions like stenosis, herniated discs, or recent surgery, please speak with your doctor or physical therapist before beginning any new movement practice, including what's been described here. This information is for educational purposes and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. But Daria, your doctor knows your body and your history, and even gentle movement techniques can sometimes need to be modified for specific conditions. A quick conversation before you start is always worth it. If you try the passive Psoas, release tonight before bed, even just for 5 minutes, pay attention to how you feel when you wake up. Not dramatically different the first time, but notice if you wake up fewer times. Notice if your hips feel less stiff when you first stand up. Notice if your lower back settles a little more quickly in the morning. The changes with this kind of work are often subtle at first, and then suddenly, after a week or two, you realize you've been sleeping through the night more consistently and you can't quite pinpoint when that started. If this was helpful and you want to keep learning about simple, practical ways to support your body after 60, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who could benefit from this information. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, and drop a comment below letting me know if you've ever noticed hip or lower back tightness affecting your sleep. I read every comment, and your experience might help someone else in this community. Next time, we're going to be talking about another overlooked reason sleep gets lighter after 60, and it has to do with a specific mineral that most people aren't getting enough of that directly affects how deeply your nervous system can relax at night. You won't want to miss that one.